We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Friday, and today we have Jace with us. He is our friend from Texas. Jace, welcome. Been looking forward to talking to you every day. There's more shit to talk about, so we shouldn't have any problems at all coming up with topics.
Well, that's one thing about this administration, and I guess the ones down here too, is that there's always, it's like new circus, same bunch of clowns.
I'm
So
trying
thanks for
to
having me on,
imagine,
Mike.
no problem. I'm trying to imagine what it would have been like if we'd been doing the Rational Boomer podcast during the Obama administration for 8 years. I'd come out here. I say, "Hey, Jace, we cool?" You go, "We cool," and then we just hang up. It'd be a 2 minute podcast. But times change and circumstances are different, and we got so much shit to talk about. Now, Jace is down in Texas, and excuse me for saying this because I like Texas and Florida. I've been down to both places multiple times. Beautiful areas. I've enjoyed my time there. But Jace is in one of the two most fucked up states in the country currently, and you were talking about some of the drama going down in your part of the country.
Yeah, something interesting happened, and I was proven wrong. On TikTok, once you look at a creator and like comment on them, your like algorithm gets caught up in that web, as you know.
Right.
Um, there's a bunch of guys down here that look, I think they're conservative, but they're breaking with Dan Patrick, our lieutenant governor, who is had it made his mission. He said, not funding education, not fixing the power grid, but to ban THC.
Yeah.
And he got the Democrats, he got the Republicans in the House and the Senate. And down here, the House is a little bit more sane than the Senate. The Senate's the one that tried to impeach that held a trial on Paxton, and it was just and there's another story coming out about how there was some underhand stuff going on. Imagine that with Ken Paxton. But he
Hard
made it
to
his
imagine.
mission. He made it his mission to ban THC. Well, I know a lot of MAGA people down here, and most every one of them smokes pot. And I'm here. I am the heathen liberal, and I don't. I mean, it doesn't. I never. I tried it a couple times and I puked both times. It doesn't do anything for me. I mean, Willie Nelson would be just utterly disgraced. His fellow Texan can't handle it. But there are a lot of people pissed off about that. And Abbott was getting a lot of shit from that because a lot of the veterans were saying that, this stuff helps me get off opioids and, helps me, something natural like that. And it helps you sleep, evidently. Like I said, I'm not a partaker, but you see little stores everywhere and like parking lots and everything. And they've passed a bill to ban it. And these people, these creators on TikTok, they got the cannabis flag everywhere. And well, and down here in Texas, it was kind of weird. I don't know if it's like this in other states. When they pass a law, the legislature, it goes to the governor's desk. Well, he can do three things. He can sign it, he can veto it, or he can just ignore it. If he ignores it, it becomes law, which gives the governor an out. And I thought, among a lot of Texans, that he was just going to let it go and not sign it. And so he could like blame when it passed the ban. Well, the legislature did that. I didn't do anything. I didn't do that. So I was like, he's not going to do anything. And I said that a couple times on TikTok. And
Right.
sure enough, I woke up Monday morning, the motherfucker vetoed it. I'm like,
Oh,
holy shit. And you should have seen Dan Patrick bitching. And I was like, well, god dang, man, I got to give Abbott his props for it. And I gave him his props for it. And, I got called out on TikTok for making a comment. Well, he vetoed it. And I was like, yeah, I was wrong. I admit when I'm wrong. Most of the time, I just go and delete the comment and get on with my life. But I held up and go, hey. And Dan Patrick's pissed. And he's saying, well, this ain't Colorado. This ain't so and so. But Republicans used to be about money. I mean, and what people don't realize is that brings in $8 billion to
right.
Texas. But Dan Patrick, wanted to tell you where you can go to the bathroom, and he wants to tell you about this. Well, he lost, and he was mad, and he was calling out the governor. But I'm not mad at Greg Abbott, which means he's mad at Greg Abbott. So now they're going to
What
have
else could he be mad about?
he's going to have a special legislature now. And he said, well, I'm going to die on this hill. I'm not going to pass this stuff. And if that makes me lose re-election, then I will lose it. I think they may get his chance now. This may be the little bit of blue that we're getting with. Don't, you can shoot up a school, you can freeze grandma on the power grid, but don't touch my fucking pot. I mean,
Um,
I guess we do. I mean, I guess they have a limit as far as they can go.
I grew up
Crazy.
in the 70s, and one time I remember my kids were covertly talking about marijuana, and like in the 2000s. And I responded to them, and they look at me and go, "What do you know about it?" I go, "Bitch, I grew up in the 70s. Everything you're talking about right now, we fucking invented." But
Oh
at the
yeah.
same time, like you, I've never gotten a taste for pot. I don't have anything against it. I'm cool with anybody who wants to use it. My wife will use uh,
CBD.
chewables, CBD type stuff, and even the THC stuff. If she has to sleep, she was going through some pain with a broken rib and a broken shoulder. So, if it's helpful, it's helpful. It never was something that I really enjoyed, but that doesn't mean I don't think everybody else should have an opportunity, especially when it's natural and especially when it's profitable, brings in taxes, and then we can do more good in this country or that state if we do it. People like uh, your lieutenant governor, he's just one of these Bible bangers that says, God says that's wrong. No, he doesn't. Never said that. So doesn't the lieutenant governor work for Greg Abbott?
Yep.
And he's
Oh, he
calling
was
out Greg
trying.
Abbott.
Yeah, he was calling out Abbott, but he was saying he wasn't mad at Abbott when everybody called bullshit on that. I mean, he was pissed and he was having a bad day, and I was here for it. But right when I give Greg Abbott his props for that, he goes and vetoes the funding from the federal government to feed the children. So it's like, they're okay with pot, but they don't want to feed kids. And he did
Yeah.
this last year, and I thought it was just a Biden thing, but now it's coming from the Trump administration. So I mean, he's just a dick, I mean,
I
that's all I
mean,
can say.
what's the
Yeah.
possible loss for them taking federal money to help kids? What's the negative for
They
them?
don't
Why
want to
would you
be,
veto that?
they don't want to be, I mean, there's a mentality the Republicans have, because I used to hear it all the time, is that they don't want to be beholden to the federal government. And that means anything. If it can help somebody's life, well, that's socialism. I mean, there's a lot of people that could, get a lot of help. And it's like you mentioned before, the government does a lot of shit that a lot of people aren't aware of. And
Yeah.
it was a running, under Biden. I mean, is it overspend? Yeah, but it's not half the crap that the Republicans say. I mean, they don't want to pay taxes into shit, but they like to drive on the roads. They like to, do certain shit, but they don't want to pay the taxes. So, I mean, and we ought to enjoy the government as the middle class because we pay most of the taxes. The rich sure as hell don't.
Yeah, where the fuck does the money come from? We're taking
Us,
money that we put in. Why not take the money? The thing about it is if Texas doesn't want to be beholden to the federal government, well, give it all back. You're
yeah,
a fucking
exactly.
taker stake. Give it all back and show us how you can handle things. And then secede too and see how that works out. People are they will cut their nose off to spite their face.
I think a lot of it has to do with too is that Republicans always attack the most vulnerable. In fact, they attack the people that, can't fight back. I mean, if men had babies, abortion would be legal in every 50 state. There would be no problem with it,
Yeah.
but it's women, and they also take away from, women that are abused. I mean, I did jury duty a few weeks ago, and they give you an option to, give I guess, $20 a day to, and I gave mine to the Battered Women Association because I can't literally vote for our mayor, but I like to give it to something I know it'll go there. And that's like a lot of the funding they do is they cut that stuff. They're
Right.
actually going after now. The Supreme Court's actually okayed it. They're probably going to try to defund Planned Parenthood. I mean, it's just a war on women and children. But like I said, if men had abortions, I mean, abortion would be, 50, 52, 53 states, as Trump would say. But it's just the most vulnerable. If they were going to cut, taxes for Elon or subsidies for Elon or something, he'd be up and fighting about it. That's why they don't do it. But they know women and children can't really fight back, and they know a lot of men won't stand up for them. That's sad.
Here's the thing. This when you talk about this Paxton, is it Paxton or no? Who's the lieutenant governor in your state?
That's Dan Patrick. Not to
Dan
be
Patrick.
confused with the great sports announcer. He's a good guy, not that Dan Patrick.
Yeah, Dan Patrick's a religious right piece of shit. But this is what the Republicans do. Every time something doesn't go their way, they scream, "Oh, we were cheated, and we're going to find some angle or some loophole to kind of beat it." And a good example of that is what's going on with the Big Beautiful Bill. And
Yeah,
as I've said for a while, the Big Beautiful Bill's in a lot of fucking trouble right now. Things are not going well for it. The parliamentarian comes out and starts cutting a lot of shit out of that bill. It's just not legal or it doesn't fit under reconciliation. And I don't know if people understand what reconciliation is, probably do. Reconciliation is something you can pass in the Senate um, if it's strictly budget. You can pass it with simple majority, meaning one vote. Okay. But if it's not regarding the budget, then it's susceptible to the filibuster, which means you need 60 votes, and it would guarantee nothing's ever going to pass because of that filibuster. So the parliamentarian comes out and does that. And, they've done it to the Democrats too. And you know that they're bipartisan and they're doing it by the rule of law. And you just kind of deal with it, even if you don't like it. Not the Republicans. They're screaming and stomping their feet. We should fire her. We should get rid of her. But what they don't understand is if they do away with the parliamentarian, you're also pretty much doing away with the filibuster, which I'm cool with. Now, under the current circumstances with the filibuster, it's problematic because the Republicans have control in the Senate and the House. Then everything could get passed with a simple majority. But I've always said the filibuster just causes us not to do anything.
correct.
And everybody's afraid to get rid of the filibuster because they're afraid the other side's going to get control and do damage with it. Well, we're what maybe a year and a half or so away from the 2026 midterms. You want to do that and fucking see, this is the amazing thing. They want to do away with that. They want to pass this bill, which will absolutely sink them in the House and the Senate. When they do what they want to do in that bill, they will lose horribly in the House and the Senate. And if it does away with the filibuster, guess what? Democrats get control. We can do whatever the fuck we want. We can pass whatever we want. Now, Donald Trump won't sign it, but come 2028, when we get a Democratic presidential president, we'll be passing stuff left and right. We'll be able to fix this stuff real quick.
Well, I hope they, I mean, like we talked about last time, part of you wants it, them to pass it because they can, bring Armageddon up on them. I think, your boy Tommy Tuberville, the brilliant, ex-coach from Alabama, was out there.
Yeah.
He was the one crying for it. But I've been reading that I mean, you have a lot of I mean, the Senate, the Senate Republicans are a little bit, they're not as crazy as the ones in the House. So I think they're not, I mean, especially the House leader or the Senate leader, he's not going to fire her because they know that it'll go to court and it'll get, Supreme Court overturn it. So they're not going to do that. They actually respect her because, like you said, they know that the filibuster will be gone. And some of them are thinking about the future. Tuberville doesn't give a shit because he's going to go run for governor of Alabama. He's out of there. Mitch McConnell, I mean, he used to, saying all this shit. He's going to go. He's not going to be there in the future. And, all these old men, like you say, and women are making these laws, but they're not even going to affect them.
No,
So that it's doing that, and they do that to the Democrats too. And I've heard people say, "Well, I mean, they're doing this, and it's not." I mean, reconciliation. That's what it's called, right? You said.
right.
I mean,
Reconciliation. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, too, well, that's unlawful. It's like, no, Democrats do that too. I mean, they could have done more, but I think that some of them didn't want to do it. Like things with when Biden was in power and had them both, they were like, I think for that very thing, they didn't want to go against it because it would end the filibuster. But I
Right.
mean, like to me, elections have consequences, and if there's a majority party in power, there's a reason why that majority party is in power because the other side hadn't done shit. And I think that's why, and that's a big reason why the Democrats lost. Yeah, they did a lot, but none of them are fighting, like we wish they would. And a lot of them, like in the House, voted along with the Republicans not to impeach him, and they're trying to make excuses for that. And then you look at why David Hogg's trying to do what he was, and you see what happens in New York. I mean, the Democrats better wake up because I mean, I mean, they may not get, I mean, there may be a third party rise out of this or two parties rise out of this. And that's the party of the younger, and, they're complaining about it being socialism or whatever, but a lot of the generation, they're more Bernie Sanders than they are, they're more Bernie Sanders than they are Joe Biden. And a
Right.
lot of people that voted for Trump do like Sanders. So, I mean, they're called socialism, giving a bigger piece of the pie to more of us instead of a few. I mean, who wouldn't want that? I mean, that sounds good to me.
A lot of people, when they talk about the Democratic Party, they're unrealistic. They've watched what they've done, it hasn't worked, and then they push back at anything that anybody wants to do something differently. David Hogg, for example, wanting to get fresher faces in there, younger people, because they will appeal to the younger people, which will be the majority of the electorate come 2028. Plus, they need them to do some things. I mean, the Democrats have proven to be kind of elitist and playing the same old game that everybody's playing in in Washington D.C. Like you said, with this Mondami winning the primary in New York, I don't know if he's going to win the mayorship. I think he probably could. Is he qualified? Well, he's no less qualified than Donald Trump to be president. He's
True.
33 years old. He happens to be Muslim. I don't care if he's fucking Muslim. We don't even know what Donald Trump is, so who fucking cares? He claims to be a Christian, but he doesn't behave like a Christian. So what are we to believe? But this is a signal to the Democrats, and they better wake up and they better do something about it. I talked about this earlier, when AOC wanted the to be the ranking member on the oversight committee, and they put in the old white guy who ended up dying of cancer, sadly. Now he's a perfectly fine guy, but they should have taken a look at that situation and said, "Fuck, we got to go to a youth movement here." But they didn't do that. Then when this last election came up, um, Jasmine Crockett wanted to be in there. And then she came out, well, the numbers don't match up, so I'm pulling out of it. I'm not going to be elected. And I thought for sure another old white guy. But um, instead, the guy who won was Robert Garcia, who is a younger guy, a Hispanic guy, and kind of an activist in his own right. So I take that as a good signal that maybe there is some change going in the Democratic Party. There's plenty of old white guys they could have put in that position. But Robert Garcia is probably a good choice for that position. I would still just as soon seeing Jasmine Crockett, but this is a good consolation prize.
Yeah, when she pulled out of it, I didn't really was paying attention to what was going on. I was like, well, I don't think anybody got to her like AOC didn't. I mean, they didn't get to her either, but Pelosi had her person to do it. But I think she pulled out because she wanted to, show unity, and it wasn't some old white guy. No offense to all white guys like us up there, but I mean, we had our day in the sun. I mean, it's time.
Yeah,
America doesn't look like us as much anymore. It's and as much as
thank
Republicans like to
God.
like to run from it, diversity is not a bad word. Diversity, I mean, who knew? I mean, who knew that, that, one of my, neighbors who's Hispanic should have the same chance that I do. I mean, that's not what MAGA and Trump wants. They want, to bring in all the white people. Well, I don't look at skin color. I never really have. And I just have never been able to understand how somebody can because, everybody, and here I am, like I said earlier, I'm the heathen, but I'm the more who practices more Christian values than some of these MAGA people. But
Yeah,
yeah, I wanted Jasmine Crockett to do it. I think in time she'll have a position like that, maybe even, Speaker of the House. But, I wish all these Democrats like Schumer and Pelosi, who had such a hard on to get rid of Biden, would practice what they preach and fucking walk out the door too. And I think Eric said it yesterday. I mean, I cannot believe out of San Francisco, there's not somebody liberal enough besides Pelosi. I mean, my God. I mean, when he said something about she's closer, or that guy who's running for mayor is closer to 18 than she is to retirement. I mean,
yeah,
what the
it's
fuck?
ridiculous.
I mean, and I even talked to a guy the other day who claims to be a conservative, but he supports MAGA. That's not what conservatism is. And I go, well, I just want it to where people even our age, younger, are running this shit because people older that are running aren't going to be around. They're going to be
Right.
passing these laws and they're not out there. They don't know how it is. They don't realize that, McDonald's pays minimum wage or Burger King. And well, people, the minimum wage was never meant for that. Well, yeah, a lot of shit wasn't meant to be what is either. But that's what people got to feed their fucking family and have a roof over their head. Well, they're gonna fucking work these minimum wage jobs because that's their only option.
Oh yeah, they will say that. They will say minimum wage was just for kids trying to get through school. And that's well and good, but that's not the way they did it. Over and above these jobs for minimum wage for kids, you've taken away all the other jobs or you've made it impossible to get those jobs.
Oh,
And this is what they have to do. I don't care what you thought it should be. It's a matter of what the fuck it is. And
correct.
once we know what it is, we've got to deal with it. Don't tell me what your hopes and dreams were or what you thought it was going to be, because clearly you were fucking wrong. So we've got the issue now. We've got people living on minimum wage, can't survive on it. So what are you going to do about it now? Don't tell me, well, it's not working right because it was only supposed to be this. Fine. There's a lot of things that were supposed to be a certain way, but because Republicans and some Democrats fucked it up and got greedy, now we've got the problem. Let's address the problem. Let's not talk about what it should be. I get tired of these people, especially when I'm talking to somebody who doesn't know what the fuck they're saying. They're just repeating something they heard some rich Republican say who is flat out fucking lying.
Well, the thing about it is that, like social welfare is welfare. Corporate welfare is welfare. And that's what I told somebody. I got asked, well, why aren't you a Republican? Why don't want you vote? I mean, when was enough for you? And I was talking to somebody someday and he says, well, you used to be a Republican. I go, well, I used to vote Republican, but I voted for Bill Clinton, even though I was raised evangelical, because Clinton talked to me and he made more sense. I've always out the box. And I'm proud to say I voted for Hillary after even hear that, all the murders she committed, Vince Foster. And I still voted for her. And if you're not familiar with that, look up, more Republican propaganda is why she's so hated.
Yeah.
Um, but what got me, and I told a conservative this today too, because I was being told, this lady told me, coworker told me that migrants are criminals. And I go, every single migrant? Well, most of them. And I go, well, that makes sense. And she goes, what do you mean? I go, well, we got a criminal running the country. And you should have seen her face. She looked at me like she didn't know what the fuck I was talking about. And
Yeah.
they like to project this shit and say these. I mean, there are bad migrants. There's good migrants too. There's people in here illegally that shouldn't be. What they call illegally. But when you're going to court and trying to get shit done and they arrest you, I mean, most people aren't going to go. I mean,
Right.
there is a pathway to citizenship that, this modern day Republican doesn't do it. Ronald Reagan wanted it. George W. Bush, to hear them talk about that. And I looked at her, I go, well, you got a criminal running the country, and they just don't get that. The guy in the Oval Office has got felonies against him. A lot of these migrants don't. I mean, they're trying to escape their country because they'll be killed. They have no choice.
Right.
And it's what they did, back in the old days. They did it, to the Italians and the Jewish people. I mean, they're doing it now to anybody that doesn't look like them. And I said, the hardest thing and one of the biggest things that always made me go from a conservative, I guess, call me a liberal, I don't care what you call me, but is that Republicans, they'll have these like fundraisers and stuff, and they'll do all this stuff, but they do it like a one time and they go back to their lives. You know, I can't stand the fact that, and I hear them all the time say this, that they don't care about something until it happens to them.
Right.
And and they live in they live in this thing where everything is evil and open borders. I mean, I lived on a border. I come through the border check. It's not open. There's people being stopped. Like, and you try to tell them, well, Obama and Biden, Obama arrested more, deported more than anybody, but we got open borders. And Trump gets elected. They really haven't passed anything. What do you not hear about anymore about the borders? Down here in Texas, they're scaling back. They're not doing it. They're not
Yeah.
finishing the wall because they know it's stopped. But that
It's not
didn't
a
stop
talking
until
point.
Trump became president, supposedly.
Well, that's it. Republicans just go after whatever red meat they can go after. A good example, and we talked about this. I don't know if I talked to you about it. I think one of the reasons we haven't seen a Democrat step up and be the leader going for the presidency in 2028 yet, because we know what the Trump-lefucks and the Republicans will do. They only have one strategy: to go after that one person, try to diminish them or make them look bad. And if you don't believe that, take a look at what's going on with Mondami in New York. He
Yep.
won a fucking primary. They're already saying, how do we take away his denaturalization? How do
Yep.
we kick him out of the country? How do we do this? My question to Republicans, why are you so afraid of him? But it's not just Republicans that are afraid of him. It's the Democrats too. They're freaking out. Well, he's anti what's the word I'm looking for? Capitalist. He's anti-capitalist. No, he's just talking about helping people. And instead of bitching about it, maybe you should pay attention, listen to what he said, and try to figure out why he won almost in a landslide over Governor Cuomo. First of all, Cuomo was a shitty candidate. He is a criminal in his own right. He's corrupt in his own right. He is a guy that assaults women. Why you would think you'd put him up for a candidate in the first place, I don't fucking know. But this guy is saying things that are unlike any other politicians, including Democrats. How we're going to give back to the people, how we're going to give free bus rides or health care or that sort of thing. Instead of saying, no, that's wrong, he's scary, you should maybe decide maybe that's what the fucking people in this country want. Maybe this is what they need. And whether he can deliver on it, can he deliver on it? Doesn't matter if he can deliver on it because Donald Trump said he'd bring down prices, that he'd bring down inflation. And he didn't deliver on it, but it didn't matter. Dumb fucks will vote for it anyway.
You know what's funny about that? I saw this with Warren. I guess she was on CNBC, and that anchor was trying to go after her about, well, you're a market person, blah blah blah, and what do you think about this socialist? And she goes, why are you going after the Democrats all of a sudden? Why aren't you seeing what the Republicans are trying to do? They're trying to they're trying to give all these tax breaks to the rich and make the middle class pay for it. Once again, is another example of Democrats being held higher than Republicans. Because if you had
Mm.
they call him was he anti-Semitic if they call him that because he's guys from a Muslim or whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, this is the same party that, has white supremacists, in the Senate. I mean, was it Steve Scalise, I guess, or who was it? Or some guy from New York that was, I guess he said he was proud to be racist or something like that. I
Well, there
mean,
was a guy named Steve King down in
Steve King,
Iowa.
that's what it was. And I mean, they're proud of it. They read it
Yeah.
with a badge of courage, a badge of honor. But a Democrat, especially one that's, not white, is held up to a higher standard. He's talking about this stuff and what the younger generations and what he's saying about, of course, they're going to give, they're talking about, free education, free bus rides. We all know that the government is going to, give them tax breaks or something. They're gonna like those companies aren't going to go bankrupt because they're giving these. The government's going to help, is it subsidize? Is that the word? Where
Subsidized, yeah.
yeah, they're going to give them money. Those businesses aren't going to go broke. But it's just another example that the Democrats are falling into the trap. They should, they're running away from this guy. They should be embracing, like you said, is like, well, how did you win so well? I mean,
Yeah.
Trump, but what they're gonna do is that Eric Adams is gonna run. Is he running again for mayor? And then Cuomo said that he's
Independent.
gonna run as an independent. So those are two places. I mean, those are two things that are gonna Democrat votes. So what they're probably gonna end up doing is they're going to override the rule of the people, and they're probably Republicans going to get nominated or are going to win because you're going to have three quote unquote Democrats running against that, even though the other two are in name only, and they're gonna screw it. They're not going to embrace this guy, hear what he has to say. They're going to run. They're going to probably back Cuomo, and they're gonna fuck their voters and they're going to fuck their state.
I And people said, "Why are you worried about what's going on in the mayoral race in New York City?" I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit, but I'm all about taking a look at things and trying to figure out what it means. Cuomo didn't get elected. Big surprise. He's a horrible candidate. Eric Adams decides to go independent because he's a fucking criminal. I don't even know who the Republican candidate is, but this guy may not be the best candidate, but it's the best motherfucker you could come up with. Do better if you don't like this guy. I just have a feeling that people people see how far right everything has gone. People say, "Well, I just want to get it back to the center. I want centrist." I got to tell you, the day of the centrist, I think, is gone
Yeah.
because it's been so radically to the right. You're going to have to swing it all the way to the left just to find the middle part at some point down the road. It's going to have to go further left and attend to the people's needs in this country after decades of not paying attention to it at all, both Democrats and Republicans. So we need people who are going to swing things to the left a little bit just to bring it back to normal.
Case in point, that's the way I feel because I used to be Republican, then I went moderate. But goddamn, right now I agree with Bernie Sanders and AOC. I mean, she said something that there's got to be a change. There's got to be some kind of change. And what people, these older Republicans, probably the time it comes in Democrats, when it comes, due, we're headed towards something that may not really affect our lives, but it will your grandkids and probably your
Yeah,
kids. That's
yeah,
AI.
yeah,
They're going to have to, even Elon Musk said that one time back when he made sense, that there's going to have to be some kind of guaranteed income or people are just going to starve because there's
yeah.
coming a day and not too distant future. I mean, if you look on TikTok and you see the AI, you can't, I mean, a couple years ago, you could tell the difference. Now it's kind of hard to tell the difference. I
It's
mean,
getting better. Yeah,
it's getting better, but what it has now is that it has the ability to make itself better. It's a self, I mean, they're not getting better because we're doing it. It's getting better because it's making itself better. And they're
right.
getting parts of there where they've tried to shut part of an AI down and it's figured them out how not to let them do that. So I mean, people laugh about Terminator, but I mean, motherfucker, that's where we're headed. And there's going to have to be some kind of, guaranteed income. So this stuff he's talking about right now is just the tip of the iceberg of what this country is going to need. And it's time we get younger leadership that can realize that and doesn't know. And the guys now, they don't know how TikTok works. If you don't know how fucking TikTok works and social media works, you shouldn't be fucking in Congress.
No, no, you really shouldn't because it is a plays a big role. You're a tech guy though, and let me pose this to you and see if you have a different take. I grew up when there was three networks, radio and records. And then we got the cassettes. And then we got the CDs. And when the CDs came out, oh shit. Or even the even the cassettes came out. Oh no, that's fucking trouble. It's going to ruin everything because people will make their own copies and people will lose money. And we went from radio to TV and people thought TV, oh, that's the end. It's a vast wasteland or it's going to do terrible things. The internet comes along and they said, "Oh my God, this is going to cause us all kinds of problems." And then downloads for movies and music. Well, it's made it tougher for businesses that made a practice of robbing fucking people. Um, it didn't cause the demise. And when I look at AI has a lot of positive functions and it has a lot of negative functions. But for people to predict that, okay, AI will take over everything and we're done, I don't buy it because I've heard that before on so many fucking things. New technologies that comes and people are terrified of it, and then it kind of assimilates into society. Some people become a purveyor of that particular technology, and it's used for different things. I don't buy into the fact that we all got to be fearful of AI and it's going to take over the world and none of us will have jobs. I don't buy that.
Well, I respectfully disagree on two things. We're talking about the music industry and the movie industry. Well, the music industry is dead because technology overtook it.
Right.
Because Napster came out and all these artists try to do it. I mean, artists are not paid for their work anymore. I mean, I pay $12 a month and I can And I wish that Spotify was around with all these records I bought, or I could be retired as much money as I spend on music.
Right.
And I think a lot of that's greed because, back in the day when CDs were popular, they were 16, $20 a thing. I mean, then it cost like, a couple bucks to make. But the technology has made it so people don't pay for movies anymore. People don't pay for music. And what I've seen in my 30 plus years of working, my job as a technician has gotten a lot easier.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think, like you're going to have a robot, I mean, when I say AI is taking over, a lot of that is has to do also with your functions, what you do, because
Yeah.
now you have technology. So, I mean, you before an IP address is something that like it's like the phone number to your computer, how it connects with the web. Before, you used to have technology where you'd had to put a static IP address. You'd have to type that thing in. You'd have to ping it to make sure it worked. Ping is like, trying to connect to it. Technology in the last even 5 or 10 years has gotten to the point where that computer time clock, whatever, you put it on there and you just set it to one setting and it finds that IP address for you. So they're not necessarily static anymore. They're in there. And what I've done and like compared to what I do now, compared to what I did 20, 30 years ago, even 10 years ago, a lot of it is not needed. A lot of it is not, I mean, about the only thing you got to do now is program it. The technology is getting there to where it can do the job by itself. Yeah, you may
Right.
have to have somebody up there put it on the wall or, program it, but I mean now, I mean at work, you look at computers all the time and you have to go through these updates. I mean, they're all set on a keystroke, like a schedule to do this stuff. And a lot of it you don't even see behind you. So when I say AI, that's what I mean. I don't mean that, a robot's going to come like Rosie from the Jetsons and do, clean your house and stuff, but that's happening too. A lot of the foundation now is like speaking for myself and what I've seen. I mean, I mean, it would probably take two or three people before to do kind of the job I do. It don't take that many people anymore. I mean, I
Right.
mean, a lot of it is just, I mean, and that's just in like technology. You're always, right now you're going to need that, physical person to do the hardware and stuff like that. But as far as the programming and stuff like that, a lot of that's AI, and that's what I'm talking about. That it's taking the jobs, but we're not maybe see it so much. Like I think we're years away from the self-driving trucks because they were talking about that coming. I don't think we're there yet. It's like the electric vehicles. We don't have the technology yet. It's a great idea, but we don't have technology yet. We don't have the infrastructure for it. But if the tech bros or whatever they're called have their way, I mean, that's why you always see these layoffs in technology because half their jobs are just, they're done by AI. And I think it's a real issue. So that's just my 2 cents. That's what I see happening.
But the thing about it is, though, is that when technology takes over, what happens with technology is that it changes everything. It changes the whole way we do things, and people hate change, like the music business. I was just talking to a guy I worked with back in the '90s. He was a musician, and I hadn't talked to him in 25 years. I'm going to have him on a podcast, I think. Very talented kid. He did a lot of shit. He like for example, I don't know if you remember a group called well, you're too young. Tamara and the Scene. Um, they were out of Minneapolis. He wrote a hit song for them and some other stuff. But we were talking about the music business. He goes, "Yeah, it's we couldn't do what we did back then, but there are more opportunities for somebody who is industrious." And Prince was the first one to do it musically. He realized that the music business was fucked. And I'll tell you, before technology came, the music business was fucked. It was a horrible business. They robbed musicians.
Oh yeah.
You talk about people not making money now. Check how much Chuck Berry made back in the day when he was having his shit stolen from him. And we were talking about it, how that was going on. What technology has changed the music business, and some people will say it's for the worst. It depends on who you're talking about and what you do, because you aren't selling records in the stores for 25 bucks a pop anymore, but you do have the ability to distribute your own music.
True.
People go on TikTok, they put a song out there, they put it on Apple, and they sell it and they keep all of it or most of it anyway. And that's what Prince did. When Prince saw this was all going on, he says, "Fuck it, I'm just going to distribute my own things." And people say, "Well, you won't sell as many albums." He says, "Put it this way: would you like to make 2 cents off of 5 million records, or or all of 100,000 records?" It was about money to him.
Yeah.
People who wanted to buy it bought it. I think it changes things, and I think we do adapt, and I think we do adjust. I think calling for the end of everything because of technology, we've seen it before, and it's going to be different, and we may not like that it's different, but we will adjust and adapt to that situation.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we will adapt to it. I mean, yeah, it's like the Industrial Revolution. I mean, people thought that, I guess all the, what was it? Is that the Industrial Revolution when they had the cotton gin and stuff
Yeah.
like that? Yeah, I mean, I get that, but I'm just, speaking from my experience, what I see,
No,
that
I,
like
I understand.
jobs like mine will probably be gone, but, that doesn't mean it won't create, 10 other jobs doing something else. I mean, I see your point that way, but
Well, I
I
mean,
just,
I mean, when cars came along
yeah,
and your chosen career was blacksmith, I'm sure you were pretty fucked up by that, but you have to adjust with technology as it comes around.
yeah, I agree. Unless you're an Amish, and they still have blacksmiths. So, I lived in Missouri, so I remember the blacks. I mean, I just remember as a kid not understanding how they didn't know who the $6 million man was because they had no TV. So, I mean, it's like, hey, I mean, that's where you want to live. Go ahead. But yeah, I mean, I see your point. And I've heard that before that, it could do this, but it could also create, 10 other jobs. But I think a lot of the way of life, and I think, especially with older people, because people ask me what I do for a living, and I say I help older people understand technology. A lot of people don't like it. And I was lucky to be in Generation X to where we had both best of both worlds. We had the world before, and
Right.
my thing I learned on the job. I didn't, I took computer classes. I mean, when I'm old enough in high school, I took typing, on a word processor, but it was still typing. And I know how to use a typewriter because I had one. But I mean, and it's kind of like driving, I guess, kind of like driving the stick shift. I mean, I guarantee you half the, population of the United States don't know how to drive stick shift,
I
probably
agree
more
with you.
than that. So, and we did get there. So, you're right. I mean, it could be, but I'm just saying from my experience, I've just seen it to like jobs like mine are, probably going to be obsolete. And I'm actually grateful that I'm not starting my career what I'm doing. I'm ending it. So, pretty soon.
Well, yeah, exactly. I'll tell you how old I am. When I was in junior high school in the early 70s, there was one or two rooms in the whole school that had a computer.
Yeah.
And what that computer did, we didn't understand what the fuck was going on. It was printing out tape with holes in it. It had
Yeah.
a cassette
Postcards.
connected to it. And it was so, we go, "Oh, computer, big fucking deal." It doesn't mean anything to us. It's amazing to the teachers and stuff. We were talking about the big, beautiful bill, and we're talking about Republicans, how they are prone to lie. I think we all know, and I think the Democrats have done a good job in the narrative as far as letting people know this is going to cut Medicare. Donald Trump, in a speech yesterday, was talking about it. Well, we're going to get 100 or 1.7 trillion dollars back, and you're not going to feel it, and we're not going to cut Medicaid. That is just a flat out lie.
Yeah.
That
He's
is
doing a lot
just
of
not
that lately.
true. And I wonder, with all these cuts he's talking about, how we made this money here and that money there, my question is, where did that money come from that we lost? And of course, it's taxpayers. So my second question is, when do we get the money back? You saved all this money. When do we get the checks? Because it was our money that you say was wasted that you now say you've gotten back. When do I get a check? And the fact of the matter is, we'll never get a check. He loves to explain how he won, but he can't back up anything he does. And he's trying to push the narrative that Medicaid will not be touched. And the fact of the matter is, there's other people in the Republican Party saying otherwise. Mitch McConnell says, yeah, it'll be terrible, but don't worry, they'll forget about it. This is what a guy who's leaving the building soon does. He doesn't care. And he's showing his colors here by saying, I don't care who gets fucked up about it. Let's just see how this works with us politically. And if they forget about it, we can still continue to do the bullshit we do.
I don't know if it was Eric or you were talking yesterday about, how Republicans look at this as, their Obamacare, that they're going to face a lot of, you know, uh, uh, blowback.
Yeah,
But the thing about Obamacare, it helped people, and people eventually
yeah,
realized that and got to like, this ain't no getting over it. I mean, you're going
no,
to talk about, I mean, a lot of this is going to hit Trump voters. Like a lot of those rural hospitals rely on that. And and that's just the beginning. And what people don't realize is they're starting on Medicare, Medicaid. I mean, Social Security's next. I mean, they're already
yeah.
eyeing that because they see it's going to run out of money in 2034, as they say. But we've heard, like you said, we've heard that our whole lives.
All my life, I've heard that.
Yeah, we've heard that all our lives. But I mean, if they would just, if everybody paid their fair share of taxes, we know the middle class does, we know the poor does. If the rich did that, because we all know trickle down doesn't work. And
No,
I'm hoping that people are starting to see that trickle down doesn't work. I mean, hell, look what happened. Look what happened when we had the thing in when Obama, we had to put all that money in there and they gave all that money to the businesses. They didn't spend that shit. They hoarded that shit.
no, yeah,
I mean, that's not blaming Obama for that, but you pushed money into something. You wanted those companies to spend that and they didn't. And what did we find out during COVID? We found out that, student loans have to be paid out, but not those PP personal loans that senators took
yeah,
out and, Congress people. But, the middle class, fuck yeah, they got to do it. And have you ever noticed too, but, that what they did, what really they're fucking the younger voters, and younger voters continue to vote for Republicans. One of the biggest fuck things to the younger voters is you can, like, you get medical debt, your house gets flooded, you get sick. You can declare bankruptcy, get a clean slate, Trump's done it a lot of times, and you can start over. But what's the one thing you can't do? I mean, besides taxes, the one thing you can't bankrupt, and that's student loans.
yeah, exactly.
Because, I mean, and actually, I think Bush made it harder for people to do that. I mean, you pretty much, what Bush did is he made it, and the Republicans, what they did is that they wanted to shame everyday people like me and you if we had to go through that. But they look fine when a business like Trump does it, it's totally acceptable. We've got to get, and Republicans have got to get this. I don't know if MAGA ever will, but you got to realize this: the Republicans are not for the middle class.
No,
I put that on my Facebook page. A lot of my family are MAGA. They're not saying nothing because a lot of Republicans, they use Medicare, they use Social Security. But what these people don't realize is that you're getting fucked along with the rest of us that didn't vote for this shit. And they
right.
need us to realize this shit or they're gonna get fucked. Yeah, we're gonna know about it, but they're not. And I don't know if a lot of people say, well, they won't do nothing. Well, he's a depreciating asset. So when that starts blowing back, I don't think they're going to pass this shit. I think there's just too much because a lot of this shit that they're changing in the Senate, the House wants nothing to do with. And the House has a thin majority as it is. So it'll be interesting. We may not get something until what the Republicans will probably do, though, if they eventually pass it, what they'll probably fucking do is get closer and closer to the midterms and then fucking pass it. And so people be
Yeah,
fresh in people's memory. Every day goes further. People are knowing more about it, and I give the Democrats credit on this. Their messaging is getting out. I mean, it's either that or the Republicans are just so stupid because you see them in interviews right now. They talk about it.
yeah,
Even Josh, that guy from Missouri, he came out. Oh, I'm for it now. I mean, you fucking had all these things, nothing changed, and now you're okay with it. So who do you get talk? Who talked to him? Trump.
yeah. Trump talked to him, and he represents Missouri. So good luck with that in the next election, because
Yep.
you're fucking a lot of people in your state, and they are going to come back at you with pitchforks and tiki torches. They're going to be up your ass if
Look what
you
they
do
did to
that to them.
the wheelchairs the other
Yeah,
day. I mean, if it's
yeah,
like you said, you're gonna have 80 million people with canes and wheelchairs running over your ass. I mean,
yeah.
that's a lot of shit. And people's family starts dying. I mean, I don't know about Texas because Grandma died and we still voted for Abbott. They still voted for Abbott. So
True. Well, Donald Trump, it was reported, I was watching Lawrence O'Donnell, probably the only mainstream person I listen to and have any respect for. So some of the others okay, but he's the best.
Yeah.
And he pointed out that apparently Donald Trump called Thune, the leader in the Senate, the Republican leader in the Senate. He says, just get it passed, get a bill passed, and put it on my desk before July 4th. So Lawrence is supposing that Donald Trump's at this point, he just wants the win. He doesn't care what's in it. And that's the important thing that people have to understand. He never cared what was in it. He doesn't care if they're cutting Medicaid. He just wants the performative situation where he can sign this bill and say, I got the bill passed, just like I had a ceasefire. He wants the win even before he's won. And he always ends up looking stupid. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Republicans take that pressure, cut a lot of shit out of it that nobody's going to like, especially the Republicans, just to say they passed it. I wouldn't be surprised by that either.
You know what the Democrats need to do, but they don't have any balls to do this, is they need to like put that in an ad when Biden called them out about going out Social Security and all that stuff. When he called them out and they were booing him at that State of the Union, his last State of the Union.
Yeah,
And, it's what's sad is that people tell me that Biden was out of it. That motherfucker was on it that night and he didn't deteriorate
yeah,
that fast. He had a bad fucking night and he wasn't forgiven. The man deserved better. I will continue to think that he would have won if he would have, and nothing against Kamala, but we're just not there yet on a black woman. We're too sexist and we're too racist still, and that includes Democrats.
yeah.
But they need to run that shit. They need to embrace Biden more because he was here and for the Juneteenth thing, he flew coach. And they got up and were clapping him. I mean, of course, not everybody loves him, but I mean, Biden's a lot more popular than I think a lot of people give it. And I think with Trump, what he's going through right now, of course, the Democrats won't do the right thing and recognize what Biden did. They had to run him off with, a pitchfork, like Frankenstein. So they need to start running that shit. They need to start playing the Republicans' words against them.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're doing pretty good with that, but they need to keep this shit up. They don't need to stop this. And then they need to keep this stuff. And they can't do a lot, legislatively. Is that a word? Strategery, like Bush would say. They need
Legislatively,
to,
yeah.
yeah, they need to they can't do anything that way, but they can be in the media. They can be talking to people. I mean, what I'm missing is the Democrats going on Fox News. You know who I used to see on Fox News all the time? Pete.
Yeah.
Pete, go on there, the transportation secretary. I don't say his last name because I can't pronounce it sometimes.
Pete
Buttigieg, is it
Buttigieg.
Buttigieg?
As
Yeah.
long as you don't say Pete Hegseth, we'll talk
Yeah,
about him in a
exactly.
moment.
I see him on there going on Fox talking about that. And I think that's why that he will make a good candidate. At least I think a vice president because he's pretty young still.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what we need. I mean, we need to see AOC doing. I mean, what AOC and Bernie, what they're doing is great. And there's something there. I mean, it's taken off in New York. There's a youth movement there, and people are tired of it. Hell, look at us. We're a couple of old farts, and we're tired of the old white people winning all the time. If that
I'm
tells you the
tired of
truth,
old white
we
men.
don't even vote for the old white people. The two old white people are mad about the old white people. That tells you. Imagine the youngsters. I mean, if they keep doing this shit, they're not going to vote. They're not going to
No.
vote. So we're still going to be stuck in Texas. That's Beto said it best. Texas doesn't, they're not blue or not red. We just have a voting problem. All those people that are out there for Beto, I guarantee you all of them didn't vote.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in the red and stuff. So, I mean, you got to vote. I mean, you can rally all you want to, you still got to fucking vote.
Don't you get the sense, though? We've always talked about this with Donald Trump and his administration, that it's going to become overwhelming and insurmountable, the shit show that they live in. Donald Trump's always been able to juggle all the bullshit, lie here, lie there, scandal here, scandal there. He's always been able to juggle it. But what I find with narcissists is they always come to a point where there's too much. They can't juggle it. They start dropping things. They start spinning out of control. And I'm kind of getting that sense as of late, especially with this bombing in Iran. Again, it was another situation where Donald Trump wanted to swoop in, get the big win, end the war in the Middle East, and raise his hands in glory, suggesting that he is the Lord and Savior and he did all of this stuff. So he goes and does the bombing run. And I'm convinced he did this bombing run more so because he was butthurt about the disrespected G7 and just how people perceive him. And he's all about being perceived as strong and powerful and smart. So he goes and does this. And he honestly believes afterward, oh, I sent the big bombers and I bombed them and obliterated them, and people will cheer me. But instead, they say, did you really obliterate them? I mean, did you really? He should have kept his mouth shut and said, we did this, we did a good run. We got to wait and see how it turned out. But instead, he has to take the win early. And this is why people are pushing back on him, because he said what he said. And now they're coming out saying, well, it doesn't look like it was pushed back or obliterated, maybe pushed it back a few months. And this just kills him because he thought this would be the thing that made him the hero, that got him out of the problems he's got with the bill and every and deportations and all that stuff. And it wasn't. And part of it was because somebody leaked the information from his own fucking administration. So when it came out, they couldn't say it was fake news because it was his own people that said it. So he's spinning around trying to do all these things to fix it. He goes and has a press conference. And I don't know if you've noticed this. Well, he had the first thing where he said, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. That told me a lot because he would never have done that before. Even Donald Trump would have never done that before. He's spinning out. Then he has the press conference with Pete Hegseth and whoever else was there, and he gets questions. He's not used to getting questions he can't answer. So then he defers to Pete Hegseth. He's doing that a lot now. He's saying, well, let Pete answer this. Well, let JD answer this. He doesn't feel comfortable at all in what he's doing, and he's spinning out of control. And that's trickling down to his people. We saw Pete Hegseth's press conference yesterday where he was asked a simple question. How do you know you got all the uranium when you bombed Iran? He didn't answer the question, never fucking answers the question, but he started admonishing the media. This tells me things are getting a little out of control back behind the scenes and they don't know what they're doing. And now they're starting to flail.
Yeah, I think that lying is becoming so apparent that I mean it's like he said something about there was a deal with China on the tariffs, and somebody said that, and of all people, Brent Baer called him out on that. Like, well, there's no proof of that. Where's the science stuff? So even Fox is getting tired of this shit.
Yeah.
But what I think you're right about that because when he said, "Oh, they're fucking don't know what they're fucking don't know what you're doing," he was more pissed at Israel than he was Iran.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you right now, believe me, I don't know if you know this, Mike, but I have a tendency to cuss sometimes, and I have
I,
family.
I've been known to do that too.
I I no, I have family that are MAGA. That this has got to be killing them. That he dropped that F because I mean they look at him like Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, Jesus turning all those tables in the I mean, hell, we had to get our cussing from somewhere. It had to come from God or somebody.
Right.
And this has got to destroy them. It's kind of like when he held the Bible upside down. I
Right.
mean, they were just, oh, well, that's just a mistake. I go, and I tell them, and they get all freaked out. I go, he's about as Christian as I am. Only difference is I don't worship myself like he worships himself.
Right.
But yeah, him saying that, and when he said, they don't fuck what they're doing. And I told coworker who's MAGA, I go, you know what? I fucking agree with him. He's right. And he's right. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. But as the president of the United fucking States, he ought to know better that that's war's been going on as long as he's been alive, probably close to it,
Right.
70
Ex-
years.
exactly.
And you cannot win. And and Trump, when he said, let's get out of Afghanistan, he went after Bush for that. I agreed with him on that. And it's like you're talking about the Republicans, they don't build anything. All they do is destroy. When
Right.
they went in there with this Dodge stuff and whatever, they just want to cut this stuff. There's waste, and if something's working, you don't just destroy it, you work to fix it. You put
Right.
people in there that are doing it. But no, you put the Lyndon McMahons, you put the Elons in there, the people that don't mind being the bad guys because they're billionaires. I mean, face it, that's why these people are like her and him did this stuff because they don't care. Elon can lose millions of dollars. He's got more money. she doesn't she had nothing to do with education, but she doesn't mean be the bad guy. I mean, hell, they fired people on TV in wrestling as a joke. They think it's real funny.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, yeah, I think you're right, and I think it's getting to him because I mean, he that side of him cussing like that, I laughed at it, but then again,
I
I
thought
was
it was
like, well,
hilarious.
yeah, I mean, he's right. I mean, they know what the fuck they're doing, and a lot of it, I even put that on there. They were talking about how I guess there was a ceasefire, and then like what 20 minutes later, Israel bombed Tel Aviv or something like that, or and the thing about it also is that he had to be, like the NAFTA stuff, like you and Eric were talking about. Supposedly, there's a new deal, and there's a girl. Her name's Natasha. She works for CNN or something that they're going after. They're going after the media for reporting shit. They're trying to blame the Democrats for leaking this shit, but the Democrats aren't in their cabinet. So there, Natasha, I forgot her name. She used to be work for the Atlantic, and now she's on. I don't think she's on Fox, but she's on CNN. But there's a new deal coming out, and it's pretty much what Obama had.
Yeah.
So it's like they're going to give, and I remember MAGA, like all these people were pissed that they were giving the Iranians all this money. And I hear people still, I can't believe Obama did that. But I guarantee goddamn to you, when they give it, when MAGA and Trump does it, a lot of them are going, oh, that's okay. That's progress. He deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. Go figure.
No, I'm con you know, I talked about this on TikTok, and I'm looking at the whole situation with Donald Trump's obsession with the Nobel Peace Prize. He doesn't even know what the Nobel Peace Prize is. He has no fucking clue. But I think a lot of what we're seeing out of Donald Trump and his hard on for Barack Obama, you know where it stems from, don't you?
Yeah,
It stems from that press
White
dinner,
House Correspondents' Dinner.
right? And Obama embarrassed the shit out of him. And that was devastating to him. You know, his narcissistic personality was just absolutely bruised and may have been part of the reason why he decided to run in the first place and why he behaved the way he did with ACA and all this other stuff. But I'm convinced that his obsession with the Nobel Peace Prize is because Obama got one and he hasn't. He's measuring his dick with Obama every fucking day. And unfortunately, when you're measuring your dick with a younger, smarter black man, you're going to fucking lose.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, the only thing what Trump needs to do is when he presents that, treaty with Israel, he just needs to wear a tan suit and he can be just like Obama.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly.
if you know about the tan suit, you know about the tan suit. I saw I always been a big fan of I didn't vote for Obama, but I've always been a big fan of Michelle Obama because I think she says that it is. And kind of off topic, you heard what because they're asking them about their marriage and stuff because they're not always in public and they were asking her about how's your marriage going and blah blah blah, and she said something about, well, do you ever regret not having any boys? You know what she said? She goes, no, I love my daughters because if I had a boy, it would be a Barack Obama. I mean, I mean, if that's not like love for your partner, I mean that's like having your back, but that's also jabbing, I mean that was I thought that was so funny that I think America, I mean, it's like, you talk about, people wanting to get back to, bipartisanship and all stuff. I think people miss that. And I think that, what amazes me about this country is that Obama got elected, but a lot of people that voted for Obama voted for Trump.
Yeah.
And I think
Which makes no sense.
a lot of those people that voted for Obama and voted for Trump couldn't vote for Kamala. And that's where we're at right now. So all the racism isn't only in the Republican Party, a lot of it's in the Democratic Party too, and so-called moderates and independents. I mean, I don't think we'll see it in our lifetime, but if we ever get over the woman and skin color stuff, the world would be a lot better place. And that's not just in America, that's everywhere. Because
No,
if
I
you can,
agree.
it's like there's an Aerosmith song called Living on the Edge, and Steven Tyler, if you can judge a wise man by the color of his skin, you're much wiser than me. I mean, it's sarcastically, of course, but
Right.
you think we get a certain way, and then I mean, you like to think that we're not like that anymore, but I mean, hell, I think we're a lot of ways we're worse because he's given them a platform to come out and do that stuff. The same people
Yeah.
that, get offended by the F word are okay with the other words, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I've said this to people before. I've said it on the show before. If you lived in the 60s and 70s, you understand that racism was just accepted.
Yeah.
People did it. If you said the N word back in the 60s, your mom might say, don't say that. But nobody really cared because it was accepted. In the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, uh, white people would tell you that racism was better. White people would tell you that because it wasn't as apparent, it wasn't as upfront, but they weren't living as people of color experiencing the underbelly of all of this shit. And then Donald Trump comes around and makes it cool to be racist again, at least for some people. And I don't think we're any more or less racist than we were in the 50s and
Oh, yeah.
60s.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of what we're willing to accept. And with Donald Trump as president, the people who are of that ilk seem to have less fear about exposing their racism. So the idea of getting rid of racism, I don't think that's ever going to happen. It's always going to be, but we got to find a way to tamp it down like we had it for a while and just diminish the voices of those people that happen to be the racist and the misogynist and the sexist and the people against everything else. We've got to make it uncomfortable for them to stand up and spew their shit.
Yeah, there was Oprah Winfrey said something one time where she said all those old races need to die out, the old racism and stuff. Yeah, that's a good way to think of it, but I've experienced I've experienced minorities racist towards other minorities.
Oh yeah,
And it's like, and I was with a friend of mine and I remember them saying something that, you would think somebody like me, of course, with the heads shaved and the goatee that I would say. And
yeah.
I look at them and I'm like, you really think that way? And I mean, where's your Klan hat? And this person wasn't white. And I think a lot of the way I was reading something about the Pew Research, they were talking about how many gains Trump made with the Latinos. That's something I'll never understand, especially living down here. But it's a machismo thing. It's machismo is
Yeah,
like Spanish for macho. I mean,
yeah,
it's just it's 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 not even legit. And I think that's my biggest thing is that I could never get that. When I saw Trump coming and was going to run as a Republican, I remember the last kind of Republican that I kind of thought about voting for was Rubio because he was closer to my age. And I was like, okay, I've heard him talk before. He stands up to Trump. And now I'm watching this stuff and he just looks like he just sold his soul.
yeah.
I did. And
What?
he could have been somebody different. I mean, I look at him as somebody worse than Ted Cruz because Marco Rubio actually had a chance. Ted Cruz was always going to be a puppet. But Marco, there's nothing worse than somebody that you think is strong, who shows strong stuff. I don't agree with everything he says, but it becomes a lapdog. And when I was watching that, when they were talking with Hegsworth, Vance, Rubio were out there with Trump, and Trump was talking. I mean, Rubio just looked like, there's an old Bible, what profit the man if he, gains the whole world but loses his soul or something like that. And I mean, you saw three of them in a red tie, and you saw JD Vance stepping off to the left a little bit, but you notice he was wearing a blue tie.
Yeah,
And I think you and Eric were onto something, and we're saying he's trying to kind of separate himself because it wouldn't surprise me if when Trump gets beat down that they do try that 25th Amendment stuff because I don't know how much more he can hide it
yeah.
because he's lying to the part where MAGA can't MAGA can't hide it. MAGA can't cover for that. And the media is getting tired of this shit too because they're starting to get attacked. Once again, like the Republicans, they don't care until it happens to them.
Well, I think people have to understand. I think there's a lot of people that Donald Trump says, well, he's a great communicator, he's great at marketing and stuff like that. Maybe at one time he was, but if you watch what he does now and what he says now, especially when he said they don't know what the fuck they're doing, he just opens his mouth and vomits whatever comes forward. There
Uh,
is no thought process about what he'd say, because if they did, he wouldn't fuck up so much. But there's no thought process. He's just like a screaming little kid that says whatever comes to his mind. He's not opposed to burning bridges or scorching earth, and he just says whatever he thinks is going to get him out of that particular mess. Now, Marco Rubio is a fairly young man, and I don't know if he realizes it yet. At one point, like you said, he might have had a career, but when this whole Donald Trump thing is over, and it's going to be over at some point, Marco Rubio's career in politics is over. He'll never recover from not only doing the horrible things that he does, but showing what a weak ass, pussy ass bitch he is. Nobody's going to respect this guy. And the same for, the Tulsi Gabbards and all the other people. But Marco Rubio, especially because he seemed to be a legitimate politician. Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, Cash Patel, they're not legitimate in any way. They never were. They never will be. But he had the possibility, like you say, but he's ended his career by doing what he's doing now. He bought in, he sold his soul to the devil. And when the devil goes, he's going to take him down with him.
well, Mike, I take exception with the devil comment because Lucifer was the guardian of light. Trump's nowhere near that.
True, true.
But Rubio should have stayed in the Senate and kept quiet and waited for his turn. But he supported Trump, and he could have been a never Trumper. Yeah, his life would have been more difficult, but I think in the end, people would have respected him more. But you don't see that in the Republicans, and you see everybody that did that. I mean, with your Republican, you're with Trump or you're against him. I mean, your life's fucked no matter what. If you stand
Yeah.
up against him, he's going to primary and get rid of you. If you go with the flow, though, you'll get destroyed that way. And I always say that, like Rick Wilson said, everything Trump touches dies. I mean, the Republican Party's dead. I mean, you have a lot of people like me that aren't ever going back. And a lot of people like me that are, like you said, they've gone so far to the right that, you have to go so far to the left to get it done. And I never would have considered, and what's also kind of funny too is that a lot of people that support Bernie Sanders voted for Trump. That makes really no sense to me.
Yeah.
But I mean, Bernie Sanders, if he was maybe 20 years younger, he'd have it. But I mean, I don't want to see him run for it either because I don't want old people to see it. If Biden couldn't do it, I definitely don't want Bernie Sanders because of the age thing. Would he make a
I
good
have a,
advisor? Yeah. But we need younger people. And I think AOC's that, but I mean, I hate to say this, but I don't think we're ready for a woman president. I think 2024 proved that because she should have won and she won big.
yeah. I'm ready, but I think the
I am too.
best, my people will say to me, "You think you're smarter than everybody?" I go, "No, I don't think I'm smarter than everybody, but I guarantee you I'm smarter than 49% of this fucking country who
Oh yeah.
voted for Donald Trump. Definitely smarter than them." But the and I forgot what I was going to say. The thing with Donald Trump winning in 2016 and this Mondami winning in New York in this primary. Um, I've said this before. Kamala should have won. Hillary should have won.
Yeah.
We have to look at what that's telling us. Hillary should have won. Donald Trump won. If Bernie Sanders would have been running against Donald Trump, I guarantee you Bernie Sanders would have won. But why? And I'll tell you why I think. I think this is a message to not only Republicans and Democrats, we're tired of the status quo. We're tired of politicians the way they are, both Democrat and Republican. We want something different, something outside of what we've been fed for decades. So Donald Trump was the only option. Now, had Bernie been there, he would have been one of those options too, and he would have been a much safer option. That's why I think Bernie would have beat Donald Trump in 2016. But Donald Trump won because he was going against establishment Hillary Clinton. We get to Joe Biden. Joe Biden beats him, and he's kind of establishment. But the fuckery that Donald Trump did from 2016 to 2020 fresh in people's minds. That's why he lost. We get to Kamala. They've forgotten about all the shit that Donald Trump did. And once again, Kamala appears to be part of the establishment. I think both parties have to understand they're sick of the bullshit. They want good people. And this is why, everybody talks about a third party and the third party is not going to work. I would say, let's do this. Let's have no parties. Let's have a political Hunger Games. You put out your best shit, and regardless of who you were connected to before, the best person wins. The rest of you can fuck off. Now, I know that's not going to happen, but that's what it's got to really be. I mean, if you look at Republicans right now, who's probably has the most credibility in the Republican Party right now? Probably Liz Cheney because she got the fuck out of the mess before it took off. I don't like
Yeah.
Liz Cheney. I'm not going to vote for Liz Cheney. But who's the one person in the Republican Party you can trust to at least stand up to fucking injustice? She's the only one. And and most of the other Republicans in the Republican Party don't get it. They're fucking damaging themselves every day.
Well, also, I think what I think what the you talk about the Democrats see this stuff too, but there's a warning sign to Republicans too. For the first time, Trump's got a negative polling here in Texas.
Yeah.
47% don't like him. And I think it's because he's become part of the establishment to a lot
Yeah.
of people like that. Ken Paxton is still very popular, but he's very MAGA. I think MAGA would vote for him. I don't think the rest of the country would when he if he runs against Cornyn. But there's also another Republican. I forgot his name, but he's talking about running for Cornyn's Senate seat. I think he's a I forget his name, but he's another wacko, MAGA wacko. So I mean, you know, what are they going to do? Are they going to put some other, old white guy running this? Or are they going to, I mean, I don't know who the Republicans are going to run down, or Democrats are going to run down here, but it can't be Beto and it can't be Colin Allred because they've lost
Yeah.
already. We got to get
Yeah.
somebody newer. And there's a rancher down here that's running against Abbott. I forget his name, but he's getting a lot of traction, and they're talking about him and everything like that. But I mean, we always get excited about this, but it seems like, this side doesn't ever follow through. I mean, you just can't, I mean, you got to, as a politician, you can't discount MAGA people. You got to talk to them. And I think with this, what they're doing with this Medicare, Medicaid stuff and Social Security to an extent, I think they're getting through to it. I think the longer it goes and the more dysfunction they see, I mean, MAGA seeing that stuff too. Will MAGA turn on him? No, but you do have Republicans that are getting tired of this bullshit because, you could have voted for Trump, but I mean, it's still a fucking circus every day. It's like, it's like you're on the fucking Star Trek Enterprise and, Cap Picard goes, damage report, please. I mean, it's like every fucking day it's something new. And that's just fucking exhausting. And it's only been like what, 6, 7 months. So I mean, I gotta think the Republicans are getting tired of this shit too. So
Well,
they're
I heard
out
I heard a
tears.
report. I heard a report that, and I don't know why it came out. I don't know how many it was, but they were talking about multiple farms in Texas that were having problems with all of their employees bolting. They got nobody to work for them. This has got to be taking a toll on those Republicans that have farms down in Texas. If they're not going to have employees, nobody to harvest their crops, or nobody to help them day to day. Do you see that? Are there enough farmers in Texas
I
that are
haven't
going to
heard
feel
about it.
that pinch? Really?
I haven't heard the media talking about it, really, quite honestly with you. I mean,
In Texas. I
yeah,
heard it
yeah,
for a couple days and then it was gone.
yeah. Yeah, it's like anything else. I mean, they're running out of money too. I mean, they're not going to be. I mean, I also saw that, I did see a report saying that, they're focusing more now on, counterterrorism stuff than this other stuff. So they don't really have as much probably. I mean, I don't see it as much down here. I mean, they had those No Kings marches down here, and there was huge down San Antonio, Austin, of course, the
Mm.
blue cities. But yeah, I don't know. I don't hear about it as much. It's like anything else. There's so much shit going on that it's probably just overlooked and it's not reported on.
But eventually this starts hitting these people, and whether they hear it in the news or not,
Yep.
they're suffering, they're struggling, and that's got to have some reaction to it. You
Well,
know,
you start
people.
seeing prices go up and stuff like that when they don't got as much there, and you have it's like those things with those what was that loans they stopped and all that food was drying up because they bought
Yeah,
a lot of that
USAID.
stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's like you don't hear about that anymore. I mean, it's just so much shit going on. But I mean, I do see stuff going up. I went and got a cup of coffee today. Holy shit, that thing was like $3. And I don't usually get coffee. I just didn't have any at work. But I bought a couple packs of gum. It was like $1 something. And I bought a cup of coffee. That thing came out to $7 fucking. And a lot of that's because coffee's a but I mean there's a lot of shit going up. I mean, it's like, God, that would have been probably a couple years ago, $3 or $4. But $7 now. So yeah, they're passing along to us. So the consumer always gets screwed on that stuff. So I mean it'll probably get worse, before it gets any better. But I don't know if he's I mean, I just, the July 4th thing obviously ain't gonna happen because that's what next week.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I mean, they're pretty, they, I don't know, they keep working on this shit and they keep getting turned down. So, I mean, the more they get fucked up like this and it gets turned down and they hear about it because even the media's reporting on it now. So, I mean, they're talking about the Medicare stuff. So that's going to affect them. And I think the media cares right now is because he's going after the media, telling that people should be fired and locked up. Well, that's going to make them mad. But like I said, they're only mad when it affects them. And like Fox News and stuff, like he's going after Fox News right now, telling people they should be fired. So I mean, it ain't just the so unquote liberal media. It's
But
everybody.
Donald Trump, like I've always said, he always fuck himself. He didn't want to get in a fight with Gavin Newsom, but when Gavin Newsom starts speaking, of course, he wades in. And all Donald Trump did to Gavin Newsom is give him more credibility,
Oh
more
yeah.
popularity, more power. Um, we don't hear about the tariffs anymore,
Oh,
but there's still a 30% tariff on China. That's got to have some impact because so much shit comes from China. It's funny he doesn't talk about the tariffs anymore. Some of them are still in effect. But he told us how much money it was going to bring us. He told us how it was going to bring prosperity. And then he pulls back on the tariffs. Well, if it was going to be so prosperous, why would you pull them back? He lies every time he opens his mouth, and he can't help himself. He'll lie to cover another lie to cover another lie, and it's now starting to fall on him a little bit.
yeah, I
And he's
agree.
getting frustrated, and that's why he's turning. Pete, answer that question. JD, answer that question, because the motherfucker can't. And people are finally, the media is finally getting to the point where they're asking the right questions, and it flusters him. If they were asking these questions in 2016, we wouldn't have to deal with them today. That's why I hold the media very responsible. But he's getting flustered every time he stands up in front of somebody and he talks, from saying they don't know what the fuck they're doing to, well, somebody asked him about Article 5 of NATO. They asked him about that after his NATO conference. And you knew he didn't know what it was talking about because Article 5 is pretty specific. If one NATO group gets attacked, they all go in and help that person out. And the only time that's ever happened is for America's benefit after 9/11. Donald Trump doesn't know that either. But when asked about Article 5, he says, well, there's a lot of answers to that question. No, Donnie, there's not a lot of answers to that question. There's one answer, and you, the President of the United States, doesn't have a fucking clue.
Yeah, there was something. Who's that girl that he had a town hall with? That girl from CNN that he's really got a hard on for, not sexually,
Caitlin
but
Collins?
yeah, I guess that he was saying something over there. It was like blaming her for something, and like the G Summit, they were laughing at him.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you can't handle the media? I mean, so I mean, I don't know, man. I think maybe that's why his popularity in Texas. I mean, if Texas is starting to turn on you, Fox News starting to turn on you, I think the Lion, like I said, I mean, it's getting harder and harder to make excuses for the guy. I mean, his own military had to lie to him because he wouldn't be tweeting about it, when they're going to go in and do that. And he
Yeah.
proved it right when he went there and talked about the ceasefire. Yeah, they could have been talking about one. I mean, you always heard Biden and them saying, well, we're working on it, we're working on it. And shit still went on, and that's acceptable. But to say, hey, the ceasefire's done, and then they bomb shit, I mean, there's no hiding from that shit. That's a flat out fucking lie. If it's not a fucking lie, then you look at incomparable as shit. And it's like the same thing you said about the tariffs getting the deal done. There's no proof of that shit. I mean, it's getting to the point to where even the most dense among us, that wear the red hats, maybe they're starting to see that. It took them fucking long enough.
Well, the thing is with Donald Trump, if he could just learn to keep his mouth shut, he would be so much better.
Good
I
luck
mean,
with
when he
that.
was being prosecuted and stuff, he couldn't keep his mouth shut. When it came to the ceasefire, if he said, yeah, we're working on a ceasefire, hopefully we can get this done, he would have never gotten shit about that.
Mhm.
But he couldn't do it. He had to say, oh, there's a ceasefire. He steps on his dick all the time, every time. And I told people that when he was having the parade, I said I'm looking forward to the parade because he will fuck it up, and of course he did. It was an absolute failure. The bombing of Iran, the ridiculousness of the whole concept. Pete Hegseth comes out, and the president uh, directed the most secretive and complex uh, process in history. Lawrence O'Donnell was talking about this. He said secretive. This motherfucker was talking about it 3 days beforehand. He gave them a yellow flag and said, "Yeah, we're going to bomb in a couple of weeks. I'm going to be thinking about bombing these spots, Fordo and all this stuff." Yeah, he fucking told them ahead of time. And of course, the idea that they maybe move the uranium. Somebody asked Pete Hegseth about that. Do you know that they didn't move the uranium? Uh, Pete Hegseth couldn't answer that. All he did is go off on that Fox News reporter and all of the media. He looked like an absolute fool doing it. He looked like he couldn't control shit. And I don't know that he realizes he looks like a fool in the process.
I don't think they care because I think that they're so narcissistic that they just don't give a fuck. Trump can keep talking because in his mind, I was always told if you tell a lie long enough, you'll start to believe it. And Trump has this thing to where he evidently, Roy Cohen, I guess, was his mentor. Is that his name, Roy Cohen?
Yeah, Ray Cohen, man.
The guy that pretty much, you got to make yourself believe. You got to, when you believe something, you can make others believe it. And I think that worked kind of before the pre-internet, back in the day when, I mean, face it, we didn't know a lot of shit we know now. And I think almost
Yeah,
that's why life was almost better when we were oblivious to a lot of shit. We didn't really know
yeah,
how, we used to think, well, that never happened back in the day, like bad shit. No, it's always fucking happened. You just hear more about it now. People have always
right.
been fucked in the head. And so he does that and he tells him, but he's not that, like you said, I mean, like that shit he did on The Apprentice. He had this businessman, he was presented as a businessman, and I mean that was shit was all scripted. I mean, he couldn't even fucking
Yeah,
read, supposedly. And he's doing it now, but it's a bigger audience. I mean, he's talking to his base, but he's talking to the like me and you that were never part of his base. And I
right.
think the it's like he's like that John Lovitz character on the fucking Saturday Night Live, the guy that like, oh yeah, yeah, I fixed the copier. Oh no, no, the copier had lasers coming out of it. I mean, it's getting more like that. It's also reminds me of the Leslie Nielsen in Naked Gun when he was out there and there was something going on and all these big explosions were going on behind him and blowing up and Leslie Nielsen, there's nothing to see here, nothing to see. I mean, all this shit's going on back here. He's
Yeah,
trying to get this false sense of thing, and I don't think people are buying it because you got to realize about MAGA, they're some of the most conspiracy-based people. And
yeah,
like when those guys like that took over the FBI or whatever, I mean, they're pissed about the Epstein list, and the Epstein didn't
yeah,
get. And but it's like telling that girl today about Trump being a criminal. You know what I mean? They don't see what's in front of them. They just see what they've been programmed to see. They tell what and now Tucker Carlson's breaking away from them, so they're starting to kind of turn on him. So it's just and all these conspiracies, they're in charge now. There should be no conspiracies to get to the bottom to. It should be all transparent because that's what they
yeah.
always kept, want everybody else to do.
I'll tell you this with narcissists, they lie. They're pathological liars. And for a while it works. It always comes to the point where they lie too much and it starts becoming embarrassing and
Yep.
silly. And I think that's where we are with Donald Trump now. he's trying to do what he's always done, but he's done it too much, and too much has been exposed, and he keeps getting embarrassed every time. He's used to saying something and then taking the attention away from it and go to something else. That's not happening now. And this is what always happens to narcissists. They end up getting cornered. There's no way out. They flail for a long time, and then they just run away. I can see Donald Trump at some point saying, fuck it, I'm tired. You people don't understand. I'm the smartest man in the world. I'm just going to resign. I'll show you. I wouldn't be surprised if he did that because that's a classic narcissist. Run away. And then try
Yeah.
to get JD to pardon him because he's going to have some problems after the
Well,
fact.
he still has state charges, and he's a convicted felon because of it. So
Yeah.
the thing about Trump is that he's the smartest man in the room, according to him.
Yeah.
But we're getting more into this shit, and now I guess what the GDP was down yesterday, I guess more than they thought it would be or something.
Yeah.
This is shit that he can't blame on Biden because this is starting to, I mean, the more we get into and the more crazy this shit, he'll try, but he can't blame Biden. He did something the other day where Biden should be held responsible for what he did and whatever, and now they're still trying to investigate Biden, and I think one of his assistants pretty much told the House panel to fuck off, pound sand. They're not going to testify. I mean, Biden's not president anymore, and I think the more we get into this stuff, it gets harder, especially trying to blame him for shit when he said he could fix shit day one. I mean, I would like to think that there's a few brain cells left there, the people that would get mad about a so-called lie, about a blowjob,
Yeah.
I mean, but what do I know? But hopefully we're starting to see of it, and if Texas is an indication, I mean, I'm hoping. I mean, we need a change down here. I mean, we need a change.
The whole country needs a fucking change, and
Yes, they
the
do.
world is laughing at Donald Trump regardless of what he says. I'm going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. We're about at that point. Jace, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it immensely.
Thanks for having me on, Mike. Anytime. Enjoy it.
It's always, yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll have you on again. I'm going to be on the road next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, so I may call on you to get a little ahead because doing a podcast while I'm on the road might be hard. I don't
Hey,
know. We'll see. We'll see what
I'm here.
happens. All right. Sounds cool. Sounds good. All right, Jace, thanks very much. And for those of you listening, thanks for taking the time. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.